Let's turn back the clock to December 2007. You're being handed the Heisman Trophy at the Downtown Athletic Club in New York City.
That's a good memory. Yeah, I like that one.
If I had come up to you and said, hey, 11 years from now, you are going to be playing minor league baseball, what would have been your reaction?
Well, that would have been probably quite a jump, but I've never really been someone to look back or forward too much. I think you look at the last 10 years and all the twists and turns that my life has taken, and not a lot of them you could have possibly predicted, but I tell you what, I'm grateful for all of them, even the lows, because I love what I'm doing.
What would you say has been the most rewarding moment so far?
Being able to pursue something that's on your heart with everything you have, not worrying about what the outside world is going to say about you, but just being focused on what I believe is on my heart and pursuing it, just being able to live that out every day. I think that's probably the greatest reward for me.
Certainly there are detractors. How do you not let that infiltrate you?
Gosh,
because it's human
hard.
nature.
It is. It's hard. And to be honest, I'm a people pleaser by nature. I like making people happy. I like making people smile. And so it's hard when you try to do something that a lot of people are like, why are you doing that? That's way too hard. It's going to take forever. Even if you make it, you'll be too old. You'll be all these things. But what you can't measure and what you can't find identity in is what other people say. You has to be what's in your heart and why it's there. And for me, I've always wanted to be someone that didn't live with regret, that didn't live with regret if I didn't try. I didn't want to look back when I'm 50 years old and say, you know what, remember when baseball was on my heart? Remember when I was playing for the Broncos and I would watch the Rockies games and say, dang, that looks so fun. Or when I was at the University of Florida and I'd go over to a baseball game and watch from the outfield because I didn't want to sit in the stands because I would get mobbed, and I would watch the game and I'd think, man, this looks so fun. I would love to do this again.
How much of the itch comes from watching the Rockies when you were a Bronco or from watching the Gator baseball team?
I think a lot of it. There's a big part of me growing up that thought that I was going to play baseball. In college or pro. There were so many times where me and Coach Meyer sat down and I was like, you know what, Coach, I might go play baseball this year. And because when I was going to Florida, he said, you can come do both sports. And Florida was so open to that. But then I was like, man, you get there and you win a championship and you don't want to take away or, be a detractor from the team by going to play baseball. And so it's just so hard to ever make that jump. And then in Denver with the Rockies, becoming friends with some of the guys and watching them, and it was like, oh, that looks awesome. I want to try it. I can still remember when I sat down in a room with a lot of advisors and agents, and I said, guys, what do you think about me going to play baseball? And they all looked at me like, what? Like, no, like, you have all these other things that you can do. We have these offers for you. Like, no, we don't think that's a good idea. And I was like, well, it's really something on my heart. And then Brody came into the room, and they said, bro, tell us about what would be the process. And I said to him, will you at least look at me? Will you at least give me a chance to go to a field and you watch me and say if I have any talent or not? And he was like, yeah, of course I'll do that. And we kind of went from there.
You and I were talking last week, and one of the things you told me is that you might be standing at second base, and one of the young middle infielders will come up and say, man, I had a fat head of you on my wall growing up. What is your reaction to that?
Well, we were in the All-Star game a couple of days ago. We're warming up, and one of the guys on our team said, tells me, hey, by the way, I had a fat head of you growing up, and I still have it on my wall to this day. And he's warming up beside me playing the All-Star game. One, it makes you feel old, but two, I think it's cool because it reminds you that you have a platform as a role model and a responsibility to be able to do this thing just a little bit different. And for these young kids, even though they might be really good at this game and so close to being in the bigs, that, hey, you know what? There's still a piece of them that are just kids. And a lot of them haven't necessarily gone through the highs and lows of professional sports.
Very little resembles minor league baseball life. And the
That's
other
true.
day...
That is true.
What is this like?
It's different, and obviously parts of it aren't necessarily the best. You don't love the bus ride, especially when you're doubled up and you have no knee room, but it's part of it, and you have to be able to handle that. And there's pros and cons that go along with everything, but I think it's about the mindset and how you approach it as well.
Okay, that's the logistical part. Now I'm going to ask you, what is more difficult? First and goal from the LSU 10 in the
Okay.
fourth quarter and you're down, or you're in the ninth inning, the winning run is on second, and you're facing an 0-2 slider.
Gosh, who's the pitcher?
All right, so if I say Max Scherzer, then
No, then that's harder.
Then LSU.
Yes, Max Scherzer's definitely harder than LSU, for sure. Yes, that's not close.
Is there anything that you can take, though, from a first and goal at LSU
100%.
that you bring to baseball?
100%. The pressure, the focus, everything else around you is just berserk, and you know that the outside world, this is going to define so much of the season and everything going on. But to be able to, as best you can, block it out and say, but I have to focus on this. To be able to lock in where you can be the best that you can be, no matter what the rest of the world is saying, or the hype, or the hoopla, or anything else. And I think being able to try to do that as best you can helps in any sport. And that's something I've really tried to take into baseball.
New York is the largest media market in the country. You play for the New York Mets organization. Have you thought about the challenges of playing in New York?
I thought about it when we were figuring out what team we were going to go with in the beginning. So yes, there will be media, and there is media, but I still just try to do what I believe is best and what I believe is right, and whatever comes along with it, or the good or the bad, then that's what you have to deal with. And yeah, there's a lot of media in New York. That is true, and it's something that I've dealt with, and try to handle as best I can, but I don't want to let that make decisions for me. I don't want to let that change who I am, what I'm going to do, why I'm going to do it, because worried about the media, what other people are going to say. That's letting other people define you and what you want to do, and it's just not how I want to live my life.
However, you are a very eligible bachelor, and it's been reported that you're in a new relationship. What can you tell us about that?
That she's a really special girl, and I am very lucky and blessed, and I'm very thankful for her and for her coming into my life. And yeah, I'm usually very private with these things, but I'm very thankful, and she's really special.
How'd you guys meet?
Well, we kind of met through her. She has a sister with special needs, and so we invited them to our Night to Shine prom in South Africa, and we started talking through that, and we kind of haven't stopped.
On October 6th, you'll become only the 6th Gator to have his name placed in the ring at Florida Field. What does that mean to you?
You know, Pedro, to be honest, it's kind of hard to put into words what it means, because it was my granddad's dream, who I never got to meet, to see Florida win an SEC championship, and he died before that ever happened. He was a colonel in the Army, and he never got to see that happen. And then my mom and dad went to Florida, and then I had 2 older siblings that went to Florida, and then to be able to wear the orange and blue and be a Gator and live as a Gator, and now to be able to go back and to be up there with so many players that I loved and were role models for me. Emmitt Smith and Danny Werfel, my 2 favorite players of all time, and Steve Spurrier, and just the other Gator greats. And to be up there will be an honor, but you know what? That's everybody that was on my team. That's the Mod Blacks, the Major Wrights, the Percy Harvins, the Pounceys, the Brandon Spikes, the Riley Coopers, all those guys. That's everybody going up there. And it's really special to me, and it's humbling, and I'm very grateful.